All right. Nichols, you are so helpful and so good. I want to bring you everywhere with me. Can I take you home? All right, listen. The mic. I'm not speaking in the mic because our friends, we have a technical difficulty. And Mr. Nichols should know about this and I know he can project because I've been at a few places where he's projected. But I'm gonna project so that our friends on Zoom can hear me and you can hear me with a microphone. The friends on Zoom couldn't hear us and I'm sorry. So we tried, you get what you pay for in the state of Wisconsin. But no, with all due respect. It's a beautiful state. I love Wisconsin. I'm Wisconsin. I love Wisconsin. I love Wisconsin. No question about it. No, I'm not. Not the people. No. Okay. And we're going to get a chance to talk amongst ourselves very soon. But before that, we have a very special treat. One of Wisconsin's leaders is with us. Today, our last keynote speaker is John Nichols. Now, I should know this stuff by heart, but I'm going to pull up the little cheat sheet here. John, of course, is a co-author of many books on democracy and media, including the New York Times bestseller, It's Okay to Be Angry About Capitalism. Can I get a little amen on that? Yes. Finally, somebody's putting some, not afraid to say that it's okay to be angry about capitalism. He wrote that. Could I ask you? Please. Well, and you can learn when you're quiet. Please listen to the man. Thank you. All right. So yes, John is a national affairs correspondent with The Nation, the very prestigious magazine, and also associate editor for the Capital Times. He's a frequent contributor to the Progressive magazine. He appears regularly on BBC, RTE, Irish Radio, MSNBC, National Public Radio affiliates, Pacifica, and other networks. Twice he's been the keynote for the Global Congress of the International Federation of Journalists. John shows up. John says yes. John is a voice for the people, and I love John Nichols. John, come join me. You're a great projecting voice. Thank you.
So I understand our microphones are not working as well as they should. At all, I guess. Okay, so if you can't hear me, just let me know. All right, I will seek to project and also seek to hear you as well. Tim, thank you so much for that very generous introduction, and thanks to everybody who's come out on a Sunday in January when you could be doing just about anything else, but. It is absolutely vital that you're here, and it is absolutely vital that you're in this room. Because as there was some discussion here a moment ago, this is your room. This belongs to you. It is your capital. And one of the beautiful things about this capital is that not that many years ago, when we had the great struggle over labor rights in Wisconsin, people were able to be in this capital throughout that struggle and to raise their voice for economic and social and racial justice in a way that in many other states in this country, they are not allowed to do. In many other states, when the legislature, somebody is in session, they lock the doors up and they make it hard to come in. The Wisconsin tradition is to say that you belong here. You, the people of Wisconsin, belong in this capital, making your voices heard, delivering the messages that need to be delivered, especially that message, free Leonard Peltier, and so many other of these messages that you brought here, because the people in power don't always hear the messages if you don't bring it right to them. That's their problem, not your problem. But I will tell you this, the goal of people who are here today should not always be to sit in these seats. Maybe in these seats, yes, but not always in these seats. Because the fact of the matter is, you can and should compete for power. You should look to be the people who are sitting in the seats of the state legislature, in the seats of statewide offices, on the courts of this state, because it doesn't work if working class people are left out of the governance of the state in which they live.
Yes.
Now, I want to just start quickly by noting the passing of a great Wisconsinite just this last couple of days. Only older folks, I fear, will remember a guy named Bill Dixon. And Bill Dixon was actually was born in Buffalo, so but we forgive him. You know, he came here, had the wisdom to move to Wisconsin, and we are a welcoming state as long as you come to make us better.
Yeah.
And so Bill Dixon came to Wisconsin in the early 1970s because he wanted to be involved in presidential politics. Back in those days, our primary often defined who the Democratic nominee for president was. And Bill wanted to come to Wisconsin, be a part of that. And so he moved out here and he got very involved in politics as a young guy, early 20s, and went to Washington, of course, came to Wisconsin to work here, shot back to Washington, became an aide to Robert Kastemeyer, the great congressman from the 2nd District of Wisconsin. Robert Kastemeyer, some of you don't know who he was the, you laugh, but there's folks who won't, right? Yeah. History isn't taught as well as it should be. Robert Kastemeyer was the congressman from Wisconsin who in the early 1960s tried to shut down the House Un-American Activities Committee that was chasing after progressives and leftists. He wanted to change the foreign policy of the United States. He was one of the first opponents of the Vietnam War in Congress. Looking at my friend, Mr. Carpenter, knowing he was also somebody who paid attention to and talked about the rights of Palestinians before almost anybody else did. But Bob Kastemeyer was on the Judiciary Committee, and he brought Bill Dixon out to Washington to help him impeach Richard Nixon. And so Dixon was on the Judiciary Committee, and if you read the New York Times from that era, he was the guy who wrote the memo on how to impeach Nixon. And they called him a Nixon-hating partisan, and he didn't deny it. But he was a brilliant campaign strategist. He ran McGovern's campaign in the primary in Wisconsin. He ran Jimmy Carter's campaign in the fall of 1976 in Wisconsin. He ran the Democratic National Convention in 1980 for Carter. He then Carter appointed him, and if you can believe this, appointed him to be the U.S. representative to the World Bank. I mean, that's where all of the insiders, all the powerful folks gathered, the moneyed elites. Carter sent this guy who was a anti-war labor activist to be the representative to the World Bank from the United States. Now, I want to tell you how important that is. That's what I mean by competing for power. You want to get in there and tell them they're wrong. It is great to gather outside and march and protest. I've been in a million of them. But it is also good to send somebody into the place of power and say, what you're doing here is wrong. It is harming poor people. It is harming indigenous people. It is harming people who need your help. And so Dixon was there, and then he came back to Wisconsin. And amazingly enough, this is almost surreal. He got appointed banking commissioner for the state of Wisconsin. He was in charge of the banks. And that was in the days, and I know this is unimaginable to 99% of you here, but there once upon a time, government actually told banks what to do. Isn't the way it is now, where banks tell government what to do. And so the fact is, Dixon did this throughout his life. He was a remarkable figure and a very, very respected figure. Distinguished guy, white hair, great clothes, the whole bit. But he was on the side of economic and social and racial justice. And I will tell one just quick story. It's not, it relates to so much of what we're working on here. In 2014, when the fight for 15 was going on, the fight for 15 in a union, the argument that working class people should not work full time and still live in poverty. When that movement got started, Barack Obama, decent man. But Barack Obama said that's too high. We wanted 15, he proposed 10. Hillary Clinton, she said, oh, I don't know, maybe we could go to 12, right? But the powerful folks were not going to go to 15. It wasn't going to happen. Bernie Sanders alone almost was out there saying, yeah, let's do this. Shama Sawant out in Washington, notably both Democratic socialists. But they had a little demonstration on the east side of Madison, and it was all militant labor activists and young Occupy Wall Street supporters. I mean, it was a crowd of folks who would look a lot like a lot of people in this room. And they got out there and they were across from a fast food restaurant supporting the strikers. And I looked to my side, and there, dressed very well, the whole bit, was Bill Dixon, the former U.S. representative to the World Bank, former Wisconsin banking commissioner, holding his sign in favor of $15 wage in a union, because he knew that it was important to be in those corridors of power. But when you left those corridors of power, it was important to be on the picket line at the protest, demanding that people do the right thing. That is an inside-outside strategy that does not seek simply to protest, but that seeks to fundamentally change a society that is headed in the wrong direction. And that's why you're here tonight. Now, I hope I won't offend anybody by saying I think the Democratic Party largely forgot that message. Right? I mean, this is just, and look, this is a fundamental reality. If you're going to have a competition for power in a country, and one political party is literally nominating billionaires for president, right? And their advisors are billionaires, and their policy circle is made up of the foreign policy elite, of the economic elite. If one party is doing that, the other party had better be saying that's wrong, because people need a choice, right? They need to be able to pick between at least two choices. I'd like to have more, but at least have some kind of choice. And in 2024, the Democratic Party didn't give people that choice. Now, I'm not going to tell you for a second that I don't think Kamala Harris is a better person in a whole bunch of ways than Donald Trump. I don't know. That's not, to me, that's not a complicated theory. It's not complicated to say that what she and the Democrats stood for was better on a whole bunch of levels. And I will note that as a young girl, she grew up in Madison, Wisconsin, over on the west side. And so right off the bat, you have a sympathy there. All of that. But let us understand that what she was running around doing was having meetings with Liz Cheney. She was literally doing events with Liz Cheney. I'm sorry, I can't imagine a more mixed signal than that, right? Because if you're saying, I'm on the side of economic and social and racial justice, I'm on the side of being on the right side of foreign policy, which is to say, of course, that we oppose the genocide in Gaza and we want to make sure that the violence ends, right? But if you're going to say that, I don't think sitting with Liz Cheney communicates the message all that well. Now, I like that Liz Cheney disagreed with Donald Trump. I think that's fine. But with all due respect, the way that you reach people is making a clear contrast. And that clear contrast is to have a Democratic Party that is in favor of economic and social and racial justice, in favor of saving the planet, and in favor of a foreign policy that prioritizes diplomacy and peace over militarism and violence. So people didn't get that, right? A lot of people did not get that message. And they didn't get it on working class issues either. The fact of the matter is that in this moment, what the Democratic Party needed to be saying was not, oh yeah, Joe Biden was great. He did everything right. No, your message ought to be, Joe Biden did a lot better than we expected. He did a whole lot of decent things, and I give him credit for that. But the fact of the matter is, it's not sufficient. You know, when they proposed all these big bills in Congress, the infrastructure bill and all that, they were for a certain amount of money. Tens of billions, trillions of dollars, right? Huge amounts of money to do childcare, housing, raise wages, get us healthcare, get us the things we needed. That's what was proposed initially. And then Joe Manchin or Kirsten Sinema comes along and says, oh, well, I don't know. I don't think we should give them that much money. Yeah. You know, and then suddenly they lowered it down and they lowered it down and they lowered it down and they lowered it down. Well, with all due respect, what the Democrats should have been saying in 2024 was, now we want you to reelect us. We want you to give us power so that we could get the whole thing, not some part of it, not some compromise. And the failure to acknowledge that was a big deal. Something else is a big deal. Our media system in this country has been absolutely obliterated. We don't have a media in this country anymore. Not one that functions in a way that would sustain democracy. We have lost, in the last roughly 10 years, 20,000 working journalists. We have lost thousands of daily and weekly newspapers. Our radio stations have been gutted out, and the people have been replaced with streaming of right-wing talk radio that isn't even connected to the community. And if you watch television, well, my apologies. Because if you watch television, what you are going to see is a 22-minute newscast, 1/3 of which is sports, 1/3 of which is weather, and 1/3 of which is absurd crime stories that aren't even taking place in the town where you're talking about. So you have a newscast that is everything except news. Because with all due respect, I think people understand the weather isn't news. It's right there. If somebody comes to you and says, you need to pay a cable bill so I can tell you the weather, your answer should be, no, I think I will look out the window. So our media system is not sustaining democracy. It's a disaster. And into that void, right? 20,000 journalists gone, radio turned into a streaming service, TV full of weather. You know, on TV, you see this, right? On television, by the way, just a slight deviation here. When you turn on TV, they say, well, it's the end of the world. Everything's going home. It's unbelievable. There's so much terrible stuff going on. But first, the weather, right? They literally, if you watch it, they're going to go right to that weather report. But so that's what your media is today. And it creates a void. And in that void, power, economic and political power steps in. And what do they do in that void? They fill it with propaganda. They fill it with messages that will not inform you, but will serve them. And if they don't get enough from the shell of what was traditional media, they buy the platforms on which we communicate. Elon Musk was the biggest media story of 2024 because he bought X, which was Twitter, and he turned it into a kind of a spew of pro-Trump messaging. And so here you have this void of propaganda and literal billionaire messaging, right? And so the first thing I'll tell you of any consequence here is don't blame your neighbors. Don't blame the people who didn't vote the way you wanted them to vote or didn't vote at all. Because you have to understand, an awful lot of them are getting their information from people who are lying to them and people who are using the existing systems in order to present a message that is so antithetical to reality that they actually often, not all, obviously, but a lot of them fall for it. And so if you're out there saying, oh, wow, there's a bunch of people who are just horrible, right? And we can't talk to them. We can't connect with them. That theory is a perfect theory for power. Power loves it. Economic and political power loves it if we're divided. If we say, I don't trust her, I don't like him, he didn't do what I wanted him to do. If we keep dividing ourselves up in that way, at the end of the day, power will prevail. It will come out ahead. And you know this in the coverage of foreign policy and domestic policy. If we had the intensity of coverage, as an example, on Israel and Palestine that we had in the first couple of years on Ukraine and Russia, same intensity of coverage, same sort of passion of coverage, there would be a wholly different policy in the United States as regards Israel and Palestine. You know there would be, because the fact of the matter is, if you think that people are ultimately decent, then you have to believe that if you give them real information, honest information about what's really happening, about the oppression of people around the world and about the oppression of people in this country, if you give them the real information, it will touch their heart and they will come to your side of these issues. And so that's what we want. We want a media that is fundamentally different than what we've got, but we are not there. So we got a Democratic Party that doesn't do the job. We got a media that actually turns things in the wrong direction. We've had bad results in elections, in a lot of elections. We've had bad results in our economic life, right? We have people in power telling us, oh yeah, everything's great. And yet we've got inflation that overwhelms us. We can't buy houses. We struggle at all these different levels. And we're told everything's fine, but it's not fine. And so when you have all of this in play, right, you can gather here on a Sunday afternoon and say, you know what, Mr. Nichols, that sounds pretty bad. Kind of overwhelming. Maybe we ought to just give up, right? Because, and you know what, don't underestimate that. There are a lot of people who have chosen that precise route. There are a lot of people who have said, you know what, this is just so bad. I think I'm going to check out. You hear people saying that. I hear people saying, people I love saying, I'm just going to check out. This is too much. I don't, with a woman the other night, good, great, very progressive person. She says, I don't watch the news. I'm not paying attention at all. And I said, that's good, because most of the news is propaganda. But there is places where you can get news that is actually useful and that you need to know, right? And so it is not our privilege to check out, right? To step away. It is our responsibility to go and dig deeper and find the information that actually does empower us. And then, because you're here as self-selected people, you've come here to be a part of something bigger and to actually make the change. Then when you get that information, you have a fundamental responsibility to go and talk to the people who don't get that information, right? We have to leap over, around, and under the media system that we have today in this country. And you know the best way to do it? Go knock on a door. Go talk to somebody next door to you. Go talk to somebody down the street. Talk to a friend in a cafe. Talk to somebody that you don't know that well. Maybe you know quite well, but somebody who you want to get information to. And instead of simply saying, here's what you have to do, right? Because a lot of politics is telling people, here's what you have to do. What you should be doing is going to people and saying, here's what you need to know. Let me tell you what's going on. And then I trust you to decide to do the right thing. But until we get to people and tell them what they need to know, we have a void in which we keep losing, right? So part of your first responsibility is to go to communicate with people. And what you have to understand is that's not easy, because we've created a society where we're cut off from each other, where we don't come out to an event like this very often, where we don't know the people that we are supposed to be working with. We don't know the people that could make us winners rather than losers in a particular campaign, a crusade, a labor organizing effort. We don't know them. And so as a result, two things happen. Number one, they start to hate us. They start to hate you because they say, well, I saw on TV, all these people are horrible, right? And then you start to distrust them. And you start to think, oh, I don't know. I'm not sure I like them very much. And the end result is we get further and further apart. That isn't working for us. There's no way that that's coming out well. So we have to find ways to communicate with people that we don't know or don't know that well. And we can't trust the media to solve that problem. We can't trust our political parties to solve that problem. We've got to do it ourselves. But we can't do it. I'm not asking anyone of you to do it individually. I'm asking you to take the power of this room, all the groups that supported this event. Another round of applause for Tim Corden for all the organizing together. A big deal, right? We've got people from dozens of different groups, dozens of different backgrounds, people tuning in from different places. John Peck over there working for farmers for my entire adult life, right? You know, I mean, Charlie Uphoff over there. I mean, Charlie's doesn't even do anything on his own. He just follows in his dad's footsteps because his dad was one of the greatest socialists in the history of not just Wisconsin, but the United States. And Charlie has just lived up to that honor. People from all sorts of different communities here, indigenous communities, labor community, teachers, working class people, farm folks, all you folks together. This is an incredible coalition right in this room. Esty Deneur, there you go. We've got people who have been on the right side of issues since I started paying attention to stuff. And so if we have these people in this room, then we have to pull these people together. You pull together yourselves initially, get an agenda, make that agenda realistic, but also make that agenda about competing for power, right? Don't simply say, I want to inform people. Say, I want to inform people because I want those people on my side as we get to a place where when you have a room like this, you're not just here coming from around the state to make your voice heard. You are here as state legislators. You are here as elected officials. You are here as the leaders of this state. And the people who and we're tuning in here. And that's what you want. You want to compete for power, right? And so I know that it can be overwhelming to talk that way. So I want to do just a little exercise with you. And I know, I hope it's not asking too much of folks as I bring this around here. And I'm just going to ask you to stand up for a moment. It's not going to, nobody's going to be embarrassed. It's not going to be a very difficult thing, except maybe the first person to ask to stand up. If you are a very wealthy person who owns a lot of property, would you please stand up? I'm talking rich, you know? Fantastic. Look at you. I love you for that. No, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're a wealthy person, you own a good deal of property, stand up. Okay. If you are, and no, were you standing up seriously or are you kind of? Well, I am with you. Absolutely. Fantastic. Fantastic. Beautiful intervention there. Although, unfortunately, for this exercise, it's immediate wealth and immediate property holding. And so if we look around this room, I think we're in a situation where there's nobody standing, right? That is who got to vote at the founding of the American experiment. When we founded this country, 1787, wrote a constitution, you had to own property. Americans.
Was my sisters and brothers Native Americans do what when the Spaniards, soldiers came and raped their women and their daughters? You want to talk about genocide? What God and this and that and all that crap? What about my sisters and brothers? And what bad enough they were raped, and then they went to their family and from their culture and put it up.
Well said. So, well said. Well said. Well said. When this country was founded as a political entity, when this country was founded, they did not allow women, people of color, people who were religious dissenters, or people who did not hold substantial property to vote. The founding of the American experiment, about 4%, maybe 5% of people could vote. 94, 95, 96% couldn't vote. In that circumstance, the vast majority of people were spectators. They watched from the outside as an election was held. Now, let me ask another, and this time I'm going to ask people to keep standing for a moment. It won't take long. Let me ask white men to stand up. Now, by the way, you got to sit back down if you don't have money, if you're not wealthy. Sorry. I love it. All right. Let me finish the thought here. Let me finish the thought for just a second. So men who own property, I gotta stand up. Men who own property, let's have you stand up. No, you own a lot of property. You got something, right? Okay. Let me ask now. Let's ask people who are, I'm sorry, white men who are religious dissenters. Maybe you are not a mainstream Protestant. Maybe you have different religious views to stand up. Can I add to this group if you're an atheist, if you're a dissenter, what? Okay, got a few more have come up here. Okay, at the time before the Civil War, this is who could vote, right? These are the people, stay up with me here. These are the people who could vote. We fought a civil war in this country. The most brutal, divisive moment in this country's history because of that inequity of that. People say the Civil War was a battle between the states. Or it was like, you know, the Civil War was a fundamental battle against the original sin of the American experiment, was human bondage, which denied basic rights to huge portions of the American population. And the Civil War was won, and they passed a constitutional amendment that said that black men could vote. In the southern states, people who had been enslaved could vote. Stand if you're in that category. And you know what happened when black men were allowed to vote? After that breakthrough, when black men were allowed to vote, women said, Frederick Douglass actually said to women, you know what? They just passed a constitutional amendment and said we could vote. You know, shouldn't women be allowed to vote? And women said the same thing. And they said, we need a constitutional amendment of our own to let us vote. And you know how quickly that came? No, my goodness, you're a very optimistic person. And I love you for that. No, it took from 1869 to 1920, right? That's a long time, right? You can be born, live, and die and not get your right to vote. But women suffered and struggled for the right to vote in this country. In fact, we always say, I hear people say, oh yeah, then they gave women the right to vote. They didn't give women the right to vote. Women demanded it, and they got it because they actually organized at a fundamental level. When the women in this room who are, and I hate to say this, women who are not people of color, stand up. White women, stand up. Yeah. And black women who were in states that respected the actual constitution of this country. If you were from the South or someplace like that, stand on up. But that's, okay, so let's go around here. This is the voting class. This is the voting class in 1920. Now, do you know what happened in 1923 and after this? Native Americans said, you know what? This was our place first. Why can't we vote? And they began a process of giving Native Americans, indigenous peoples, a right to vote in this country. Indigenous people, please stand up. Yeah, indigenous people, if you just stand up, not going to take long here. And then in 1963, I got you, Tim. In 1963, they passed the law overturning the poll tax. So they finally eliminated the barrier to wealth in this country. We had that wealth barrier for the start. They finally got rid of the poll tax. 1964, 1965, we did the Voting Rights Act, and we did Civil Rights Act. Would black folks in the room who haven't standing up already, stand right up, because you proudly are finally joining where you should have been in 1787. And yes, but you know, it wasn't done there. 1970, the lifetime of many people in this room, we said to people who are 18 to 21 years old, if you got to go fight in Vietnam, you ought to have a right to vote on whether we go to war. I'm going to just finish the thought here and then let you go there. And so we finally had a situation where we had all these people standing up, right? But we still incarcerated huge numbers of people and didn't allow them to vote. We still had barriers to voting. But now we've got standing up here the majority of the people in this room. And the fact is, none of that was given to people. That was demanded. They can stand or sit if they want. I just love. Well, Latinx people. (1948) Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it was. You're right. In 48, down in Texas, they started to break through on some of this into the 60s. And so please let us ask you to stand because of that excellent addition to our understanding of it. I'm loving you for this. Look at all these people that are standing in this room. All of that demanded, all of that sought by organizing and pressure, not given to you, but demanded, and you got it. And the fundamental changes that have taken place in this country have always come from a room like this, where people organized, stood up, and demanded the power that should have been given them at the start of the American experiment. Brothers and sisters, do not feel discouraged in this moment. It was harder in the past. There will be so many challenges. It will be so overwhelming in many ways. But at the end of the day, if all of you are standing, it is because of the work of your ancestors to get us to this place. And brothers and sisters, you now are called to do the work that take us to the place where this country will know economic and social and racial justice. Do not count on the media. Do not count on political parties. Do not count on the people that are in power in any particular moment. Count on yourselves and count on the fundamental power of people with a progressive vision for a different and better country. This is not a moment where you are disempowered. This is a moment where you need to seize your power. Solidarity.
Beautiful MSNBC and CNN, but what that funny about your life, you're rewriting history. That's what you said there was never a truth. I'm believing. I believe it's what it is about free country. I am standing by and rooting for the governor. We have a unity. They write this. You have to be able to fight and go to the training. That's right, don't mind you.
All right, people, I'd like to ask you to take a quick break and our panelists on the People's Democracy Equals Justice panel are going to come up and assemble up here. And so less than 5 minutes, we'll get started with Deborah Gillespie as our moderator. You're in for a great treat. Panel, go into breakout groups right away. These panelists are going to be given flags. 3 of them. Are you not on there? Oh, what's that sign say? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll get your sign up. Come sit here. You're on the panel. Sorry. Oh, I think I put it. I got it out for that. I'm sorry. Anyway, Please come and sit down and stop your conversations. And I want to just say a word about our moderator. Deborah Gillespie is from Milwaukee. I got the pleasure of working with her for the past few years now. She's on the board of the WNPJ, or the Wisconsin Network for Peace and Justice. She founded and runs Mothers Against Gun Violence out of Milwaukee. She's making beautiful things happen in Milwaukee, and I'm so honored to call her my friend. She agreed to facilitate this last panel on justice. Please give it up for Deborah Gillespie and all of these great panelists.
My first practice in high school, and a very sick person went through a red light over 100 miles an hour. My sister Christine Luden, 19 and a half years old, on a moped, she had her helmet on, and he went over 100 miles through a red light. Hit my sister, that flew over 100 feet, and her body's gonna go over another 100 feet, over 200 feet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep it here. Keeping here, did someone lose their bracelet?
That's been here for.
Okay. Someone brought it up to me, so I just wanted to ask. Again, thank you guys for staying this afternoon. And I just want to again congratulate lunch, because lunch was good to me. So I'm gonna just dive right into it. Panelists, could you please introduce yourselves and state your name, your organization, and what drew you to your cause? And anyone can dive in. You each have 4 minutes.
Hi, y'all. My name is Ali Muldrow. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a lifelong resident of Madison, Wisconsin. I was born in 1987. I like to tell folks, the battles I fight are the battles that chose me, not the battles I chose, right? Because I was born Black and queer, cisgender woman in this community. And so I work for an abortion fund. Before that, I spent 10 years working in LGBTQ activism. And I'm currently serving as the treasurer of the Madison Metropolitan School District's Board of Education. And so these are the issues of my time that impacted my life and the lives of my 3 daughters and my family. I love this community enough to be honest about what it means to be young and Black and live here. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to hear from everybody today.
I'm Stephanie Rurick. I'm with the Madison Mutual Aid Network Cooperative, and I got involved in community justice because I have seen a big gap in, I don't want to live in a police state and a surveillance state, and I have not seen anything put toward real community health and safety. So in 2005, I started the Dane County Time Bank, and we started with an eye toward being able to build up the community, pro-social context, educational, economic, and recreational opportunities that really keep people in healthier behavior. And I've seen the potential to bring people together across really different perspectives, different backgrounds, different abilities, different race, religion, neighborhoods, based on their own strengths and their own interests, and connecting them. And I also see sharing and time banking and cooperative economics as an antidote to the way economic pushes us against each other, makes us compete, pushes us into antisocial behavior, and also always makes an end run around democratic action. So we can co-opt the economy and create a dynamic that actually serves human life. So that's my aim, and that's what we aim to focus on. See you.
Staff carrier for AIM. So I've got my staff here. What that means is, so I'll carry this around. This will go with me wherever. I never leave my staff behind. Another thing that means is that I'm responsible for keeping track of the staff of AIM, keeping them up, keeping their spirits up, keeping them focused, and making sure that we're all there and ready to do our part. So I started my journey with AIM actually a little bit over a year ago, but my real activist journey began when Standing Rock happened, when I watched a lot of my people gather on their sacred lands and be attacked by this government. So, my journey started there, and I've just been drawn to it ever since. I've been a protector of the land, a protector of the water, and my people, ever since I can remember. I was born into this. You know, like she said, having to be an Indigenous woman in today's world is not easy, especially being an urban native. That's one thing that really drew me to the cause here, is being a part of AIM has given me the family that, you know, you're always kind of looking for, being an urban minority. So we just give people that space to be themselves. We are the frontliners of a lot of issues. So missing and murdered Indigenous women, the line 5, we're right there. We're right on top of it. So if you ever need any help, or you need security or anything like that, you know, you can call us, and we've got a lot of volunteers and a lot of lawyers on our team willing to help you there. Yeah.
My name is Brian George Pfeiffer, and I say G as George is for my grandfather and great uncle, who were on the Kohler strike for over 8 years, the bridge between the 1930s militants here in Wisconsin in the 60s and 70s. I'm a member of the Steelworkers Union. I'm also a member of, an organizer and co-founder of the Wisconsin Bail Out the People movement. We've endorsed and sponsored this event. I'd also like to begin, we always begin by honoring the fact that this is the area now known as Wisconsin. This is the area now known as Wisconsin. This is Native people's land, and we respect that. For me, Dr. Barbara Smith, the great African-American lesbian fighter, once said the personal is political. So for me, it's a combination of the personal and the political. Speaking of the prison panel before, I'm intimately familiar with the prison system in Wisconsin. I've had a variety of life challenges personally that have led me to becoming who I am today. And that includes being a youth who had some challenges, having a variety of challenges with the police. The police at various times have attempted to murder myself in a variety of ways. And also I understand what it's like to literally be in chains. And I understand the process of the incarceration and the system that we have here in Wisconsin. Also, I have seen atrocities upon atrocities for the last 30 years of me being active. And I also have lived, not only, I grew up in northeastern Wisconsin and was born there, but I've also traveled around the country in Detroit, which the banks have totally destroyed to a great degree. The attack on the Black and brown freedom struggles. I've lived in Appalachia, I've lived in Kansas, and I lived in Texas and all over the country, and I've been all over the state of Wisconsin. And the commonality of all of this is capitalism has to go. We believe in the system of socialism, and that's what we fight for. And we at Wisconsin Bail Out the People movement support a socialist orientation, but we also believe in building a people's united front and uniting all of us, because all of us are being attacked in every single way we can possibly imagine. And we also want to say that we need to know who our enemies and who our friends are. And it's important that there are individuals that come to this Capitol building who are dripping with blood, who are the responsible for thousands and thousands and thousands of deaths since 2011, and our sister will talk about Act 10. And they think this is funny. They think it's a joke. They think it's a game not to expand money and get federal money for Medicaid. They think it's funny to bust unions. They think it's funny to take away women's rights. And thousands of people have died over this and are suffering mercilessly. And these people are just walking through this Capitol building as capitalist politicians and getting away with this. And we say, hell no, we are not going to take this. We believe in not only building our power, but we build in using our power and demanding justice. So we are very honored to be here today, and we're in solidarity with you all, and we look forward to moving forward and building the people's movement here in Wisconsin and winning a better world that we all deserve. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know how I'm gonna follow. Thanks, Brian. My name is Joanna Frosch. I am here speaking as a woman involved in the labor movement, specifically here in Madison. Currently, I serve as the vice president of AFSCME Local 1, the Wisconsin State Employees Union. So I'm sure some of you are aware of some of the movement around the Act 10 case and how that affects the labor movement in Wisconsin, and we will maybe touch on that a little bit. But I have always been, just a supporter of labor, and I believe that working class people together can rise up and work together and fight these wrongs from capitalism and big money and corporations in our politics. And together we can unite to affect the change that we seek. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Carlene Beshin. I am the recently retired state organizing director with the Wisconsin Fair Maps Coalition. And there are brochures that you just got about the coalition and the work of the coalition. My pronouns are she, her. I am also a retired Madison teacher. I taught middle school for over 30 years. I was part of the MTI and still part of MTI Retired. Ellie and I, as a matter of fact, she's my daughter's neighbor and my daughter, and is part of the LGBTQ community. I have a picture of her on the back of my phone here with her wife and her two lovely children. All of the issues that have been raised here, and particularly talking about the people who walk in the halls of this Capitol, after Act 10, after the gerrymander, all of the issues that we care about are directly impacted by the gerrymander. And we did have for the 2024 election, better maps, but we do not have, as the front of this says, we do not have a permanent fix to this issue. What drew me to the work that I do? My father was a Methodist minister. My mother was a public school teacher in rural North Carolina. My dad, if you know anything about Methodist churches, they move you if they don't like what you're talking about.
That's true.
And he talked a lot about racial justice in the 60s and early 70s. The school I attended was not integrated until 1968 when I was in the 6th grade. 14 years after Brown versus Board of Education. The last time my dad was moved was because he was participating in a peace march against the School of the Assassins that was training people to go to Nicaragua and El Salvador. They came from Nicaragua and El Salvador to Fort Benning. My dad went there multiple times. The final church he was moved from didn't like that he had participated in this. So I come by this naturally. My dad and my mom were both very involved, as Charlie's parents were, in social justice movements and racial justice movements and economic justice movements. And so it kind of, rubs off. And they're very big shoes to fill. I was a public school teacher, as I said. I was directly impacted by Act 10. And while we were marching around the Capitol, the gerrymandered maps of 2011 were being drawn in the private offices of Michael Best and Friedrich. Only Republicans got to see those maps, and only their own maps. They had to sign secrecy agreements and not even tell their Republican colleagues about the maps. Now, let's be real. Democrats had an opportunity to pass maps in 2000, or pass legislation that would have created a nonpartisan system in 2009, but they looked at the 2008 map where Obama won big in Wisconsin and said, we are going to draw the maps. Why would we do that? Well, you see what we've gotten. And so we are working now. We got better maps. And if you are in my small group, I'll go into the detailed history. We got better maps for 2024, and we do have a more representative and accountable legislature now, but we do not have legislation to create an independent nonpartisan redistricting process for after the 2030 census. And we do not have a constitutional amendment that would enshrine in our Constitution a system that takes politicians completely out of the process and puts it in the hands of an independent, nonpartisan commission that would have full authority. So that's what we're working towards now. And the 2025 election on April 1st is super important in being able to hang on to the maps that we have right now to give us the window of time to do that. Thank you.
So our next question is panelists. You are focused on variety of justice. Thought we had a mic. Okay. That's okay. I can project my voice louder. Yeah, I got it. Panelists. Panelists, you are focused on a variety of justice causes. What ways could you collaborate or support one another? And whether it's a cause of peer or even the causes in the audience, what ways could you do that? And anyone can dive in.
Can I just start? Because what I just said about all of these issues being impacted by the maps, I think one of the things as we're working on getting legislation passed is to point to all of these issues and say, you know, you need to talk to Ali, you need to talk to Joanna, because they know the issue and they also know that we need this. And so we can lift one another's issues up and identify them as things that also impact what we are working.
Anyone else?
Right now, and it's important to acknowledge that, to acknowledge it. Think about why we're acknowledging that. There was a society here before us, before this society was even thought about, that was working. And one thing that we do in Native society is we have our bear clans. We have our clans. We have bear clans. All of these tribes have different clans.
Make our work. This is kind of here, I've got my whole team of people behind me. Some I've met before, some I've met, a couple times, some of my family members, but we've all got our signs up. We're all shedding light to everything that needs to have a light shed on it. And it's important that when we call, you show up. So I know that, at any time, if something's going on, I can call any one of these people that are here behind me, and they're gonna be behind me. This is their spot. They're behind me, and when I'm called, my spot is behind them. And so I think that's extremely important, just acknowledging, the people that show up for you, the people that you can call, and the people whose values align with yours. So I think when it comes to talking about how we can be there for each other and how we can support one another, it's really important to take into the fact that we've been doing this for thousands of years, and the people that you can ask are right in front of you, and we still hold those values really close to our hearts. We still try to value them to this day. So, and you'll see that behind me, you'll see all the causes that we make sure that we shed light on. So I think that that's important. And speaking for AIM as their staff holder, I can say that if there's ever a cause when it comes to minority issues, environmental issues, and things that matter like that, we are in it. We are in it for the long haul. So feel free to call us. Feel free to have us behind you, because that's where. And if you need us in front of you, we'll be there too. But yeah.
It dawned on me that maybe we can use this mic. This system, and so we can pass this around. I'll help pass it around the panel. Just hold it up close to your mouth.
Testing 1, 2, Donald Trump is a chump. Actually, I'm racist. Malcolm X once said, you gotta stop being bamboozled and hoodwinked. And one of the challenges we have in the movement that we'd like to raise today is knowing who the enemies and who our friends are. In this Capitol, if you look at these, like we mentioned, these right-wing racist politicians in the state Capitol, they vote to support Zionist Israel. They vote to attack union rights. They vote to attack women's rights. Everything against humanity for the people they vote for, right? So also, like in the people's movement, we will, and we're mature organizers here today. Many of us have been involved for a while. But it's also like somebody mentioned today about social media and about media today. One of the things that we do is we do research and we find out who's who and what's what. And that's really important to find out, like not only who our enemies are, but also who we're working with. And what are we working for? How are we using this to build, not just build our power, but to use the power that we're actually building in any kind of way whatsoever. So a special message also to, me in particular, a white worker, a white union member, speaking to my fellow white workers, that you have more friends and your unions actually were built. Speaking of the UAW Local 833 in Sheboygan, that union was built directly by Black workers putting money and helping your strike in the 1950s, and the strike in 2015, and the strike in Racine in 2022, and making these connections and figuring these things out, and actually pointing out that Robin Vos is responsible for thousands of deaths and he's the enemy, and he is the one who's responsible for all of these atrocities. He is not our friend. So why are we listening to him? He needs to be shut down. Last thing I'll say is that back in the day, in the 50s and 60s, our friends in SDS, SDS too, but mostly SNCC, they would research where these Klan members own businesses. And it wouldn't be a shame. Racine is on the lakeshore. It just so happens that Robin Vos owns popcorn buildings. Maybe some folks go in there and make it windy on the lake, make it hard for them to operate, make it hard for them, to organize. They shouldn't just be allowed to walk around and get away with these atrocities. They need to be challenged directly. We need to organize against them. And it's also, he owns a lot of properties, right? He's millions and millions of dollars and helped wipe out the tenant rights laws in Wisconsin. So there's a variety of creative things that we could be doing. And in that process, uniting in unity with our fellow workers and our fellow community members and our Native sisters and brothers and friends in the communities and LGBT folks in our communities to figure out these creative actions and building that unity and solidarity and talking to each other in that process and moving forward. And that's how we won what we got. And these laws didn't just drop from the sky. It's very important we defend the right to vote. But the reason why we have all these laws in the first place is because in Wisconsin, from one end of the state to the other in the 60s and 70s, there was wildcat strikes, anti-Vietnam War protests. We won what we won in the streets and workplaces first. Then it was reflected in law. That's an important note to make.
You set me up good for that one, thank you. But yes, to piggyback on what Brian was saying, the power of workers, the power of the working class has been in Wisconsin, has been in the United States, and made it what it was, what the time was that a lot of Republicans, I'll say, hearken back to, the time when we had a single member working and supporting a family, when we had, jobs with benefits, when we had time off and all sorts of things. But now that has regressed, and it seems like we're in a trope where the labor movement doesn't want to act until the laws are changed. However, we need the labor movement to act in spite of the laws being changed. So I say to you that a third of our lives are undemocratic. A third of our lives are spent at work. And in order to foster further democratic speech and further democratic organization and promote justice, I implore you to join your unions at work. If you're a retiree, join your retiree organization. If you don't have a union at work, you can form one, but you need to do the work to form it. And unions are some of the only spaces left in this country that are truly small d democratic. We are organized together. We do all the work together. We listen to each other and we show up for each other. So it's one of the only ways that the working class can come together and speak truth to power. That at your individual workplace, or whether it be at a more macro level, at this type of forum or in the legislator. So unions promote the democratic institution and promote social justice. And I ask that all the organizations represented here today get involved with organized labor in their communities, let them know what you're doing so we can show up, just like my AIM sister said, because we'd love to show up for you as well. And also, working class people will outnumber the capitalist class. We do outnumber the billionaires. If we stand together and we work together, we can promote change, we can win change, and we can move this country forward.
Did you have a comment? Okay.
I feel like I'm okay without this, but I don't want to make anybody unable to hear me. So I'll speak into the mic and say, I think when we talk about how to work together, part of what we do in romanticizing the civil rights movement is we like to talk about what people said. Last year, 2 different white men said to me on the radio, an injury to one is an injury to all. And I thought, oh man, that's really convenient if you are a white guy and we're talking about abortion, to tell me an injury to one is an injury to all, right? That's something Martin Luther King said. But if we want to talk about how to effectively organize and really make material change in the world, we don't get to talk about what was said, we have to talk about what was done, right? How many of us have been at a protest? How many of us still have the problem that we went to the protest for? Okay, so what I want people to realize is that part of the reason the civil rights movement was effective among Black people was that protesting wasn't popular. It wasn't something that made you look good. It wasn't something you shared on your social media. And when people went to a protest, they followed up with action. And so when we're talking about how to confront the billionaire class, one of the things that surprises me over and over again is the lack of conversation around organized boycott, right? If we say what this country really cares about, is money, right? The Montgomery bus boycott wasn't effective. I appreciate your perspective. Do you mind if I say what I was gonna say? All right, so if that is where we know we can be effective, the Montgomery bus boycott didn't end because the bus company had a change of heart, y'all. It ended because they could not afford to continue to discriminate against Black people, right? They couldn't afford it. It was too expensive. We need to make racism and hatred bad for business. We need to make it too expensive. And we need to be organized long-term in doing that. It is easy to show up for an afternoon and chat about a social justice issue. It is harder to stick around for 10 years and chip away at it. And it is easy to be discouraged, and it is hard to recognize all of the work that went into getting you into this moment so that you could fight. I think because I work in abortion and reproductive access, the things I want to see people do is participate in organized boycott, in organized demonstration, in long-term work. I think if we're going to work together, we have to have shared goals, and we have to stay in the work until we are done achieving those goals. The other thing I think we have to do if we are going to work together is that we have to take care of each other. We have to show up for each other's children. We have to show up for each other's housing. We have to make sure one another have enough to eat. We have to make sure one another are comfortable and safe and have the health care we need. The Montgomery bus boycott didn't work because everybody stopped taking the bus. The Montgomery bus boycott worked because people started loaning their cars to each other to get groceries, because people started carpooling to the factory, because people weren't just united in not doing something. They were also united in proactively taking care of each other. So if we want to look back at the civil rights movement, we're going to have to do more than quote the I Have a Dream speech. We are going to have to look at the models of resistance that people embrace. And we are going to have to acknowledge that at this moment, it is easier for us to organize in that way. These are people who didn't have Facebook. These are people who didn't have Instagram. These are people who couldn't shoot somebody a text message, right? And they were still able to organize hundreds of thousands of people in the interest of civil rights. So we are going to have to work harder, and we're going to have to care about each other more. And that means confronting our own supremacy. That means listening as much as we're talking. That means treating each other with kindness and respect. That means not leveraging our analysis to feel superior to one another. I'm a teacher. It is hard to teach somebody if you're trying to make them feel stupid and inferior the entire fucking time. So we are going to have to. We are going to have to love each other enough to learn from one another. And that takes respect for each other and respect for ourselves. So I'll represent the oldsters now then. All right.
Just get.
We're close to the same age. All right, cool. So I really appreciate what you were talking about that, and that made me want to go into the build side. So not only withdraw our economic support from exploitative industries, which are most of the ones that are really valued well in this society, but to build our own. So with mutual aid networks and Humans United Mutual Aid Network and cooperative economics in general, I do want to talk about how in that setting, that is another place where small d democracy is employed, and people are really taking steps all around the world to learn from what has worked in the past and learn from our mistakes that we've committed recently and historically, and keep the dialogue open and realize that the vast majority of humans, including the billionaires, including the Republicans, including libertarians, and everyone that you might really dislike their ideas, the vast majority are coming from common values, just very different perspectives about what that means. But most people in this world want safety and peace for their children, and they want to live in abundance, and a lot of people just want to be left to do that with their families. So we are looking at how we build an economy that works for the 100%. And it makes me think about this Resist and Build event that happened at the Labor Temple in 2017. We had like a 20-person circle to talk about building an economy that supports thriving life. And in that circle, we had people high up in energy production, food distribution, currency design, cooperative business design, every piece of needed, and care, which is always left out of the dominant economic, or stomped on in the currently dominant economic model. So care, all of those things, we have what we need, as Edgar Kahn, the father of modern time making, used to say, we have what we need if we use what we have. We have what we need if we share what we have. We have what we need if we communicate with each other, if we're smart about how we distribute things, if we're generous with each other, and kind and compassionate. So my dream is, let's get on with it. Let's build the thing so kids coming out of school now never enter the exploitation economy, because they don't need to, because they see how they can dream. First of all, I remember when we had a couple 100,000 people collected around the Capitol in 2011, and it seemed like what we were asking for is 40-hour-a-week jobs with good benefits. And I was thinking, is that what we're really dreaming of? With hundreds of thousands of people around the Capitol, we can afford to dream better. Money isn't an object, it's an agreement, and it's a system that is designed to widen the gap between haves and have-nots, and to pit us against each other. And there are a lot of different ways we can approach it, and reminding ourselves about the good old sharing that we learned about when we were young, and then it was beaten out of us the rest of our lives. So
anyhow, that's an invitation. I think that we have what we need in this room if we
Yes.
share what we have. So thank you for taking us into the build and dreaming space and for all of this.
Last question, and then after I ask this question, audience, you can think about what questions you may have for the panel. This question, panelists, is, can each of you share your call to action?
Great, so my call to action, my call to action, I'm actually gonna start with two. Because I think this first one is really important, especially speaking on an Indigenous level. My first call to action is gonna be if you can elevate the message to free Leonard Peltier. He is a Indigenous hostage still being held onto by the US government, and until they free him, none of us are ever going to be free. That is an example that they are setting to our people, and as long as that's an example that's allowed to be set, those are the standards. Second call to action is stop line 5. We're not gonna have a world to be hateful and disgusting in if we keep letting them put pipelines in it. So that, goes for the other side too. It's not just us, it's everybody. This is our water, this is our land. We're not gonna have a world to be free in.
The Madison Mutual Aid Network is a framework that you can jump in and experiment and time bank and share. And we have a monthly supper club. There's one coming up next Monday, January 20th. So inaugurate some deeper community. And we do peace practices, and actually it's open for you to pursue whatever dreams you have. You can start your own little network and we'll help you, or you can jump in with what's already happening. And we're part of a global network too. So if you're not in Madison, you can still be part of mutual aid networks. It's we get together in your neighborhood, the Wilmar Neighborhood Center, January 20th, 3:30 to 6:30. Once a month, we'll cook and eat together. You can drop in and eat. Yeah, I'll tell you in person. Thanks.
I have several calls to action. So I think my first call to action in this space would be like exchange your number, exchange your email, exchange your info with somebody who's here today that you want to work with and collaborate with. Expand your network. My second call to action would be, I always tell people, like, if you are reading an inclusive book about the trans community, you're doing the work. If you are like loving the people in your family and making sure your dad gets to his doctor's appointment, you're doing the work. Like, my second call to action is to recognize what you are already doing and to celebrate yourself in that work, to not make anything you're doing small. My third call to action, because I am working in reproductive justice right now, you all, and we spend an average of $680 on every single person who asks us for financial support to get an abortion. We help thousands of people across 3 different states. And I already told you, this is a little bit about how you spend your money, right? So one, my call to action is stop spending money on organizations that do not support the things you agree with politically. If that, two weeks before Martin Luther King died, 2 weeks before Martin Luther King died, he asked Black people to boycott Coca-Cola, okay? So where we spend our money, what we don't spend our money on matters, but what we do spend our money on also matters. So I'm not just asking you to stop supporting an organization that's working against you. I'm also asking you to start supporting organizations that are working with you. And so I'd like to lead you all in a little stretch. We've been sitting here, we've been chatting. You all have not gotten to move around a lot. I'm gonna lead you in the activist stretch. Y'all ready?
Yeah.
All right. You are gonna reach towards the sky, towards all the possibilities, towards everything good, everything we want for the future, everything we want for our children. If we reach beyond our grasp, we will achieve it. Reach towards the sky. Now I want you to reach towards the floor, towards the roots, towards the ancestors, towards everybody who came before us, everybody who got us here. And I want you to remember how hard they worked. And I want you to think about how Harriet Tubman's feet felt. And I want you to think about Emma Goldman's voice after a rally. And I want you to reach towards those roots. And then I want you to sit up. And I want you to reach for your wallet. And I want you to fund God's.
Hi, so first I just want to thank the reminder about the history, and Dr. King spoke in more union halls than he did in churches. And I think, like, you know, Sister Joanna talked about unions, and we think about unions as winning wages, benefits, and working conditions, but also it's important to have unions because of the reminders. Thank you again that the steelworkers local in Birmingham, the members gave tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to assist that. Of course, it was the women 366-day boycott, but it was a unity between the community and the union, and that money that was won by the union struggle was able to be transferred to the boycott to win the boycott in a lot of different ways. And here in Wisconsin, there is a lot of history that's challenging, but there's also a lot of wonderful, beautiful, really rich and deep history. For example, the furniture workers locals, they sent money to the South. UAW Local 72 in Kenosha, some say historically that they actually gave the most amount of money and resources to the civil rights movement in the South. The packing house workers, and so on and so forth. AFSCME, Dr. King died in Memphis. So just supporting the unionization right there for the workers there. So I'm saying all this to say that our call to action is rooted in this history and a legacy of these courageous and brave workers and community members over the years and decades and hundreds of years. So, you know, we put up a lot of stuff, Wisconsin Bail Out the People movement. We started in June of 2011. You can go to our website, wibopm.org, and we have events up there from Dr. King Day events coming up to a variety of events, including a state rally, Capitol rally right here next Saturday at 1 o'clock, starting at James Madison Park, coming to the Capitol. Also, our events that we're helping support and build are February 20th. We're having Rick Uritia, he's a Salvadorian brother, my co-host on We Rise Fighting Labor podcast on February 20th. He's coming to the Labor Temple to talk about corporate research, finding out who's who and what's what, having a discussion about finding out who are our enemies and the corporations and the banks so we can fight effectively. And then the other event that we're putting on is February 22nd, the Black Freedom Struggle in Palestine. Because in our view, that's really the empire, right? That Palestine internationally and the Black freedom struggle here in this country have been intertwined for, of course, many, many years, decades, hundreds of years. And so we're going to have that. We're also going to, as part of that event, the really rich and deep history, we're going to have speakers about Indigenous and Palestine solidarity, Irish and Palestine solidarity, and so on and so forth. So it's going to be a wonderful event, and there's flyers here, and that's February 22nd at the Goodman South Library, and it's free and open to the public. Everything we do is free and open to the public. And y'all are more than welcome to bring your literature there as well.
Yeah. I just by reading thing to you that I read recently that really spoke to me and about the labor movement. It was written in an article posted in the Recombobulation area, and as two former AFT leaders of Local 212, Michael Rosen and Charlie D. And they say, Act 10 resulted in weakened communities. Unions are democratic organizations that do much more than bargain for compensation. They help create a culture of solidarity among their members that influences the broader community. Union members work together, party together, hunt and fish together, celebrate births and graduations together. They support each other during hard times. Unions create social bonds by sponsoring recreational activities. They interact with the broader community by organizing King birthday celebrations, holiday parties, and retirement meetings. Several studies make clear that union membership reduces racial resentment among white workers, making them less likely to be attracted to the politics of racial resentment and scapegoating that Republicans excel in. And with that, I would say at this time in our history, we have unprecedented favorability of unions. And public trust in organized labor has increased while public trust has decreased among other public organizations. So I implore you to just join the labor movement, join your labor organization. Union members trust unions and the information that they provide their members. We're engaged in the system on our members' behalf. We are you, we're your coworkers, we're your neighbors, we're your community. And that's why I believe it's my call to action to say get involved, because you can trust your neighbors, your community and coworkers, and you can have those one-on-one conversations with them where we can start moving people towards the America we'd like to see.
So done with that needs to happen. And in the brochure that I handed out to you, there's just a really short list of issues that people across the political spectrum care about and have voiced to their legislators over time, especially since the gerrymander of 2011, that are not being addressed. We do have this very small window right now that's an opportunity. My first call to action for you to ensure that we are able to get a permanent solution so many of the issues that have been brought up here can be addressed more effectively by actually getting some laws passed that would help us to be able to achieve these things. Act 10 is on, there's a stay right now. I work for the law firm that is brought that case. We're very hopeful, but we need legislation that reverses what happened there. We need legislation that says the 1849 abortion ban is, we're writing new legislation. We are not going to keep having these court battles. We need more mutual aid. There's so many things that we need to address. We need to give Native nations the autonomy to make decisions about what the hell goes through their land, and to be able to pass that, to impact around us. So very first thing, the Supreme Court election on April 1st has the potential to put us further behind than we are now if we do not elect a progressive Supreme Court justice. Right now, we have a very slim majority, and we need to keep it because Ann Walsh Bradley is retiring. Susan Crawford, we need to elect her. Very first item of business that needs to happen. And then this summer, there's going to be all kinds of town halls explaining best practices about what goes into a permanent solution. Participate in those. They'll be all around the state. The goal is 20 plus in every part of the state. Let the people who are gathering information from voters know what you think needs to go into that. We know what best practices are, but there are some places where well, we could do this or we could do this. And what do we, the voters of Wisconsin, want? So that we, the voters of Wisconsin, can take that to our legislators. Mind you, we're not going to wait for them to tell us what they're going to do, because we know that they're going to do what's in their best interest, which we also know is not in our best interest. Okay, we have a short window to get that legislation passed, and best case scenario, we get a joint resolution passed in consecutive legislative sessions to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot and let the people decide what we want in an independent, nonpartisan, full authority redistricting commission. 5 years. This is a long haul. It's not done, and we can't stop pushing for it. I'm just Charlie asked me to talk about grassroots. Charlie over here and I are part of the Oregon Area Progressives, Oregon, the village right south of here. 5 of us planned a summit in November of 2019. And At that summit, we had over 200 activists from around the state. It was in Marshfield. We went to the middle of the state. So everybody could get to it in about the same amount of time. And out of that, 17 Fair Maps teams organized, and I really appreciate we gotta organize well. We have to organize well. So we have to eat together, we have to know who one another are, we have to identify the things that will be effective in our communities. We have to engage with other groups that have a shared vision and bring them into our actions, just like, I'm sorry, I forgot your first name, but from AIM said, we show up for you, you show up for us. We have to do that across the board. Show up. And then we can make these things happen. Mind you, we're doing legislation first because we do not believe in legislating by constitutional amendment. That is the wrong way to do it. You need to vote no on these constitutional amendments that are coming up in April as well. That's an aside.
So we have four, we started at 1:15, so we've got an actual 4 minutes over, we go over.
Let's just let Tanisha wrap things up, and then the AIM people want to do a little drumming, and then we'll go to our breakout room. No more questions, yeah. Yeah.
We got a special, special edition. Yeah. 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 That's what the American Indian movement late in the 60s.
It is originally a Cheyenne war song from way back. In case anyone ever wondered where that came from, that's where that came from.
Oh. Now we come to the point where we together in small groups where everybody gets a chance to talk. Got to look tired. I'm gonna. Could I ask everybody to please refrain from talking, please, so I can make sure that I can hear myself. I'm gonna give these to the panelists. Three of them, the three on this side are gonna go down. Two players here, two stars. If you, the Lord, you want to join with, or Deborah with Mothers Against Gun Violence. Here, just take these. Are trying desperately to stop this pipeline. Try to tomorrow night, otherwise, as Pam said, let them go in if you can. So Kenesha, I'm sorry, Kenesha and Stephanie and Allie are going to be holding down breakout groups for this round. These folks are please go and join them with lunch. You report on your food. In the center again, you'll be very grateful to get this rolling. I think there's people in the hall. Could you ask people in the hall to come in and join us? Beautiful, beautiful. I'd like to invite somebody from every group that wants to report out to come up and sit on where the panelists were sitting. One of our building community members and executive, or one of the co-directors of the board of directors for the WJ. The director. I'm sorry, the director. You were co-director, now you're the director. Or the president or chair of the board for WNPJ, as well as the leader, one of the co-leaders, that's where I got the co from, for Soul.
Yep.
And I'm gonna facilitate this. And I'll turn it over to her in just a moment, but I'd like to invite any of the speaker or like facilitators or anyone who wants to speak for the group to come and sit up in the panel. Marlene, do you have some more things to report out? Brian and Joanna, one of you. We all together. Oh, Brian's gonna do it? Okay. All right, come up and sit where the panelists are, and I'm gonna turn, and then we also want ideas from you all. And we're gonna, just have a group discussion about where do we go from here. If you raise your hand, Diana will facilitate this, and if I will be taking some notes. And try to get these out to everyone who registered and all of our facilitators and all of the groups. So, and if I missed anything, just get it back to me. We'll create a compilation of the great ideas that we can take together. Before I turn it over to Diana, I just want to reemphasize that a lot of people have come down from up north, a lot of indigenous people and allies trying to shut down pipeline, this deadly, destructive, climate destroying and water contaminating pipeline. That should never have been built in the first place and is way overdue being decommissioned. But there's an action tomorrow that we want y'all to show up for. That's Monday, 9 a.m. Meet us in the Capitol Rotunda as a meeting place, and then from there we'll be going over to is it Jeff 1? Jeff 2, where the DNR offices are. So please join us in solidarity and support with these water protectors. And now I'm gonna turn it over to Tynetta for our closing out. We're gonna close about 20 minutes to 4 to give everybody a chance to gather everything up and make your way to the doors, because we wanna really respect State Assembly person Francesca Hong, who has asked that we get out of here on time, so she didn't have any trouble with the Capitol administration or the Sergeant at Arms office. Thank you. Tynetta Jackson, give it up for Tynetta.
Introduce them. I'll call her to do this. And then I'll close on that, because she facilitated this session. Come on, Ben.
That's rough. That's okay.
She the one called all the rules, so I'm gonna let her and then I'll close out. What do you want me to say? You're gonna call each group to do their role.
Okay, everyone. We'd like to hear how would your group reports go, or actually your group gatherings. Yes.
I think our group gathering went really well. We talked about the challenges.
And I don't think this thing is on. Did we?
Okay. Don't try.
So we're gonna do that. We're gonna.
Yeah. Oh, this one right here. Can you sit there?
Hello.
My group discussion went really well. We talked about some of the challenges that we've had internally and then with other people when we're trying to engage in these types of things. I think that especially for like the younger generation, we have a lot of anxiety ridden individuals here that have a hard time understanding or, figuring out how to integrate themselves into those groups. So that was a big thing that we talked about. And then as I kind of discussed earlier, in the prison systems have, their plans. Just understanding that we as individuals have things that we can for people, and we don't always have to, do the most. Sometimes all people need is just a face to be there or somebody, so just share with them those uncomfortable things. So we all have strengths and weaknesses to play on to it. Everybody has their part in this.
Thank you.
Is it working?
Yes, it is.
I'll say it again. Donald Trump was racist Trump.
Speak the truth, babe. All right. Okay, well, I'm Brian. I'm reporting back from our group. We had some, before we got into some specific asks of everybody here, we just, talked about the, Act 10, labor social justice, breakout, that, that really was a political and academic. We talked about the role of the Right Wing Family Foundation in Milwaukee, which essentially that was set up in 1989. The beginning of it, they formed in 85, but they started in 89. Got charter schools, and then they eviscerated welfare in the 90s, by the way, with Bill Clinton, Democrat. And then they softened up Wisconsin a lot, and then in 11 they went to the coup of Act 10, which allowed them to bust the public sector, and that really reduced the working class organization to be effective, which is really the key to us in this group, was that the ability to organize with everyone in our class, right? So farmers, workers, students, etc. And really how important it is today to be uniting, because we've all been fractured to a great degree with this austerity that's happened, and no one individual can magnitude of what we're facing on. We have to be united and together. So the discussion focused on how we can support each other. So if we're in, not only Milwaukee or Madison, but around the state, we're doing Fair Maps, group, doing a union campaign, do we know 2 or 3 people there that came here today that might really awesome? Can you go down there, can you help? Can you put people up at your home? Can you bring some meals to the picket line to really start building solidarity with each other in concrete ways? So that was, just some things, and then the specific asks that we had were tomorrow at the municipal building here in Madison, GHC, S or C, GHC is a healthcare provider here in Madison. And the union SEIU Wisconsin, the workers at the facility democratically voted to have their union, they got a majority, and then looking to bargain, and I'll give you a guess what the company did. They abstained raise. So now they're having a National Labor Relations Board hearing tomorrow, second one, from 9 to 4 at the Dr. King Building, municipal building here in Madison. So we really need help with that. Of course, we know our community conditions are much better. Folks are unions. 9 to 4 p.m. a month. Yes. Yeah.
Go to the DNR, you can come from there and still be going on.
Yes, and that was a proposal in the group. See, Tim's always thinking. Yeah, I was just getting to that. Thank you. And then also another support was exactly what Tim just said. And I can't remember what here. Look at this. It's okay. Some of the groups that came to our group was like the Uplift folks is Family Farm Defenders, the Fair Maps Coalition, Bail Out the People, and Steelworkers, and obviously Local 1. So tomorrow, the big day, support the union, and then there's going to be a variety of actions which will be posted on Building Unity and Bail Out the People and elsewhere, and check out Family Farm Defenders and Fair Maps Coalition and Ask Me Local 1 for more information on what we discussed in our groups.
Organization that would be interested in hosting a general best practices in districting commissions and getting voter input on what that should look like. The flyer, the maps flyer has contact information. Please use that and let us know that you would be up for to organize an host. That's in summer and spring and summer.
She's right behind you.
You can do this one.
Okay.
All right, so our group didn't do much of a structured thing. We just had a chat, but a couple of things for me, which are just the importance of being able to talk with each other face to face and create a lot of opportunities to sit down and like actually have conversations. We listen to each other across different perspectives. And then also just making sure that there's a good chance to have a creative outlet. I noticed everything changed when we started talking about doing our singing or playing music or other things like that. So just the something that I've learned with time, and especially like being in the time making usually is coming together based on what we love, what we want to do, like picturing what we want and being able to imagine what it looks like and feels like to be there is how we create the we want. Focus on what we want to live it. So that's what I took away from it. And sing, if you like to sing.
Yeah.
Dance or whatever.
And did you have a follow? Did you have a follow? Yeah. Okay. You're welcome.
We have 10 minutes before we start heading to the door, so.
So did anyone else have anything they'd like to share? You, Tim, go ahead. Yeah, I was gonna say, you might as well come on.
This is kind of a repetition of what Stephanie just pointed out is creating places and spaces for us to get to know each other and share information. And she's been working on that for a long time. I've been working on that. I'm hoping to come together, working together, but not just in Madison.
all over the state. Can you imagine if every month there was a building unity or a socialist potluck looking for better, who's been thinking along these lines? What if every month, once a month, we came together same day of the month or the same week day, whatever it is, you know, fourth Friday or the 22nd of every, whatever. We brought food, we brought music, we brought maybe a special guest speaker. It doesn't matter. The main thing is we come together, meeting each other, keep strategizing for getting ourselves into the places of power as one human family that wants to practice real democracy. They're up, Brian was downstairs. Some of the groups kind of. Oh. Zoom? Yeah, I think everybody that went downstairs came up here, and hey, this is a great time to appreciate the office of State Representative Francesca Hahn, her chief of staff, nothing. She was like, not only was she has been just an incredible servant of the people by arranging these rooms, by coming in on her Saturday and her Sunday to make sure that things run smoothly. Now, on behalf of all of us, thank you. Give her a big hand. Please, your partner in crime, Francesca Hahn, who runs a very beautiful office to serve the people. All right, we're closing up soon. We're just taking last minute suggestions. So Alexa, did I answer your question? What's your question again?
Everybody didn't stay.
Yeah, not everybody stayed, yeah. Back corner, yeah. Can they come up here? Hold on.
Well, I just didn't know as a caregiver for what, I mean, yeah. Yeah, we do. I just wanted to know, like, as a caregiver, what contact with, just, you know, labor, low pay, and, you know, we as caregivers have, low pay, and we have no kind of insurance, we have no benefits. And, I just wanted, you know, like, just some information about who to contact. Oh. That was it, thank you.
Union makes it strong, right? Yeah. Everybody else. Oh. So.
Yeah.
Oh, that was Brian, what's the contact that you got though?
Well, I work for a union that organizes healthcare workers. And we have members all over the state and facilities all over the state, so. I love it. Beautiful.
Here for, I work for 5 years at McDonald's. And then, I'm very disgusting because McDonald's, very, be good with me. And then I come here for, I think justice for the Mexican people, need more respect and everything. Okay, this is my, lo que aprendí. And then read all the, it's too much in CC. And then I have, I'm very happy here, thank you for everything, and then God bless you.
Well, okay.
Question from
Maria?
Can you come get her to come over?
So you wanna take that first?
Yeah, take the question in.
Okay, but the question is from Mary Kay Brown. I asked her to clarify. But my question is, if they're Monday morning, is it okay? to be public and I asked her what she meant by that. You might ask her.
I think she means, can we go public with this and share it around? And if the answer is yes, right, Rebecca? To push a button on there if you want.
It says, is it
Yes.
red? If it's red, is it
It's gotta
okay?
be green.
Right, then
Okay,
okay.
yeah.
It's
The
red.
answer is yes. Show up at the Capitol as a public action and make it as public as you can. Send out the word. Everybody at the rotunda and not get a rapid response. This is the kind of thing that we can put out rapidly and all the people we get to notice. So we're gonna be trying to work on setting up a rapid response center so we can respond quickly to all these kinds of things, ice raids, quick actions that come up. We need everybody to step up and get on that. We have another speaker over there. Thank you for the question, Mary Kay.
Yes. Okay, I'm Maria Hernandez. And then I hear for those issues, very important. Then says scary. And I think so. If you keep it like that all the time, we can get some results. We need to peace. We need blessing. We need some people good, some people don't. I believe it for long time ago. It's long story. It's too much on us. We need peace and serenity, compassion, and pray for. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
Pero allá, en la máquina, en la cámara.
Oh, the camera got.
Yes, got it.
He's gonna bring you.
Yes, you're gonna.
She's in the camera, Diane.
Fidel has to be in the camera in order for them to see sign. He's gonna sign.
What she said?
No, what he said. Yes.
Here. For.
Good issues.
Y luego vota.
We vote for peace.
Está.
Peace.
Yes.
Peace.
Arrímate, arrímate.
The camera. The camera's on the camera.
Be here. For good issues. We need peace. And justice. Thank you so much for everything. And God bless you, everybody. Thank you.
She had as well as perhaps interpreters for other languages. We need help with these conferences. We regret that we didn't get together for this one, but please help us in the future. Make these conferences more accessible for all people. Are there any other last comments? We have about 3 minutes before the mad blitz. Yes. Brian?
Yeah, so I just have a quick announcement. We do want to raise that in Madison and Monona. Police pulled over black youths between 19 and 30, and there was a high speed chase and they ran into a tree and they died. And this is January 2024 for Sean Wilson. We are working on that campaign, so if anybody has any questions, let us know. Also, in Fitchburg, the police shot and killed Kevin Price, and he was in the hospital for 3 days, and the police never let his loved ones know about that. So there's Kevin Price is his name, it's on Instagram both of these, so please spread the word. We are in the process of doing, research to launch a campaign in a big way of these. Kevin Price has already done that, his people, but we really want to let that. Last thing I'll say is that, just backing up Tim's point, that we're all involved in lots of struggles across the state of Wisconsin, and it's really important when we're out there. Sometimes if all you can do, like Christine one time, we were down there to do strike support, and they made fantastic mole and chicken for 3 days, soup, that helped us go in the hall for like a week, because we had people fly in that have their own money and did that for free, and in Fond du Lac and Wausau, and all over the state for years now. And it's, I can't tell you how much that means at all, especially for younger workers and youth and students, for those who have economic challenges, to have spaces to stay or get some teaching at home. That's just as important as making flyers or doing the other basic organizing work. So if you can help with that, please let us know. We really want to build this movement with that. Very important material concrete assistance is really, really essential. So thank you.
One family.
We got 2 minutes left. Within the 2 minutes, we were talking about having another come together event again in March. So we wanted to know how many people would like to have another event like this about 10 weeks from now in March in Milwaukee. And how many will attend? Right, right.
They're gonna be working really hard on the campaign in March. And I wonder if mid-April, after there's been an election, if you know lots of that, and you know what the next steps are, might be a better time to come together again.
The reason we chose that is because we knew that people would be working on a campaign and we were trying to work side by side with that. So if we could combine the two and maybe we can get people out to help with, are you not in Milwaukee? Okay, so, go ahead, Tim.
I think both points are valid. Ted's point is that we could use the conference as a way to try to build a big get out the vote, door knocking, publicity event in. Yeah, well, I mean, and then we could have some of it available by Zoom, so we could be doing some of it by Zoom here and directing people in this area or in Wausau or in Appleton to the local thing that's happening in their community to get out the vote.
Get at that remotely and really push people to do that. And then we know the result of the election, so we know how to organize on the results of that, then.
Okay, so when we're out there campaigning, are we pushing candidates? Okay, so would that be a good push the candidates that we want? That's what we're saying.
Yeah. We went in places and we can't do it there. That's all.
Right. So I mean, there's some food for thought. It wasn't set in stone. We really wanted to get feedback and that's good feedback. And so if we think that most people won't, do it because of that, we were trying to use it as we can launch and help campaign, push the campaign of people that we want for that election to make sure that we can go out there and do it as well. So there's two foods of thought for that, and that was one that we go out there and do. So, go ahead.
Oh, so should I close things up?
Yes.
All right, I'd like to have everybody stop talking. If you're still in the room, let's have a moment of silence together. And, Andrew, can you stay a minute? You stay, just advice, man, remember, lip service doesn't really accomplish a lot. You gotta get out there and do something. Get out there, put your feet first, make it done. That's what we're trying to do. That's what all of us are trying to do. I want to just thank all of you for coming, especially the indigenous people who come from
very far away to be with us. Means a lot. And you need your voices to be. Which we're waiting goodbye. And we'll keep you posted, we'll all stay in touch. And we got everybody read something, grab each of your like to this to your work and and then Jim, what's that? So you can have it too.
Yeah.